Yo, what up? It's Aaron Moses. Gang. Man, this video is about a conversation that I had with one of the guys that I was homeless around, man. So, if you guys don't know, I got out of jail in 2018. And upon being released from jail, I was homeless because my family moved away, right? So, I had to go to Joliet, and then from there, I entered a homeless shelter called Morning Star Homeless Shelter. Okay, and one of these particular days, when I was at the homeless shelter, one of the homies, man, cool dude, short, swole, black, dark skinned dude from Chicago, he came in and he was looking around the whole shelter for his wallet. He went back outside and eventually found it. Um, and when he came back, he was very upset, and everybody was, "What's wrong? What's wrong, bro?" He was pacing and swinging his arms, not saying too much. He just, everybody knew there was something wrong with this dude. And he eventually came out and said, "Man, I found my wallet, but it was missing my ID, my social security card, which, I mean, he was homeless, so he didn't have too much of a choice where to keep his social card. I guess he could have kept it in his bag, but he didn't. Uh, and he had to onboard for a job. So he had to go. Those things were easily replaceable. He had $3 in his wallet. You know, we were in a homeless shelter, and he said that he lost something very, very important that touched my heart. He said he lost a picture of his son that had passed away at the age of 1 year old, right? And he said that that was the only picture that he had of his son, and he would never be able to see his son's face ever again. And how he said it, he didn't say it, he was just like, "Man, I'm never gonna be able to see my son's face ever again." And that really touched me as a father. And he went to go lay on his bed. This is a dorm, so it's a dorm with like 13 bunk beds, so it's like 36 men, and they had a couple cots in there. So I asked, when it was quiet, everybody was, trying to go to sleep, and I said, "Hey, bro, just out of curiosity, um, you seem pretty upset about this whole situation, and this is a big deal, you know. How are you able to keep your cool so well?" And he told me this long ass story. I don't know why. It's maybe a Chicago thing. A couple people in my family do this same thing. Like they try to drill it in your head, so they keep saying like the same thing over and over and over. And this conversation lasted, excuse me, for a good 20 minutes. And this dude was a gang banger. Like this, he got jumped one day. He went into it in this story. He got jumped at some point in his life, and he talked very slow. He talked like, so at some point I had to learn, you just can't walk around and do anything to anybody. Like, I'm like, nigga, what is, can you get to the point? But you already know. And the crazy thing about it is, he didn't even realize how slow he talked. He thought he sounded regular. He said, I got jumped. And that was a while ago, and I'm still, everything's exactly the same. I'm perfect, and that's a blessing. I thank God every day. And I'm thinking, bro, you think you speak at a regular speed and you still thank God? Well, you need to switch your loyalty to another God. Like, no, nigga, you don't. You are talking at negative 3 miles per hour, bro. What? No, you no, bro. You are moving like L.A. traffic right now. No. But anyways, he explained to me that he had to learn self-control and emotional control and discipline in prison, because the reason that he was in prison, which he didn't tell me why exactly, the reason he was in prison and he lost a couple years out of his life was because he lost his control. And that's where people go when they don't know how to control themselves. They go to prison, or they go to, they go somewhere where you could never come back from. They die. So I was thinking, just learning the most important thing in life, how to control your emotions, to be disciplined, how to control yourself. You had to go to prison to learn that, bro. Now, this video was originally supposed to be about, you need to be a parent to your child. You need to be a good example. You need to do what you got to do and don't have children if you don't have at least $10,000 in the bank or whatever the case may be. Raise your child so the judge won't have to raise your child. You might think your child is a good person, but explain that to all them people that whatever he victimized, okay? That's what this video was originally going to be about, but I do want to give you some information that I think everybody needs. There is something called PTSD, and the S is not for stress, it's post-traumatic street disorder. Now, what that is pretty much when people grow up in an inner urban community, aka the hood, they witness an amount of violence in a short amount of time that is not normal for the average person. It's similar to people going to war overseas. But having to see this amount of violence and seeing it often gives you PT. It makes you respond to witnessing violence and hearing violence in a different way, different than the average person, in an unhealthy way. Okay? The three symptoms of post-traumatic street disorder is number one, when you witness violence, you feel nothing, you disassociate, you don't feel anything towards that situation. Number two, the second symptom, which is what we're going to get into, you feel the need to react on violence. So you just saw somebody get hit in the face with a brick, and then you go home and your little brother does something and you punch him in the face for no reason. It didn't require you to do that. You weren't you weren't in danger at all. You weren't being threatened at all physically, but now you're acting on violence because that's what you see in your particular neighborhood. And the third symptom is when you see violence or you witness something violent, you think it's funny. So those are the three symptoms. You feel nothing, you react on violence, and you think it's funny. And a lot of people have all three of those things. Okay? If you laughed at the example I gave you, there's something wrong with you. I can't understand to an extent because when you live in a certain environment, you have to react in specific ways or you're not going to make it. But this guy having the symptoms of post-traumatic street disorder and only knowing how to respond to violent situations with violence, that's a problem, bro. That's a problem. I watched a guy named Gorgeous Dre, aka Andre Taylor, and he was telling a story about when he was in prison. A guy called him a bitch. A guy called him a B word, and one of the guys that he was in prison with, that he was cool with, was saying, "Hey, bro, you have to respond with violence in that situation. You can't just have people calling you bitches and calling you out your name, bro. We're in prison." And he said, "Bro, that's small, bro. He didn't put his hands on me. He used his words. He has the liberty and the freedom to call me whatever he wants." Do you think if you walked up to Bill Gates right now and called him a bitch that he would respond with violence? You think he would act like an animal? No, because he understands his value. Because he understands that he has things to lose. So I'm not going to put my hands on a man just because he called me a name. I'm not going to punch you in the face. You didn't do but if you put your hands on me, that's a little bit different. You know what I mean? And if people had that mentality, then there'd be a lot more stability in this world. And just talking about this with my girl, she said he had to go to prison to get that information to learn how to control himself because he had never been anywhere. He had never traveled. And traveling is very important for the mental health, for growth and development in all capacities of your life. Because just like I said with that white man, if you walk up to that billionaire or just even a regular white guy and you call him a name, he's not going to react with violence. Not because he's better or anything like that, but because their culture is just different. Because when you are in a constant state of survival, it's hard for you to think. It's hard for you to use your emotions for what they're for because you're putting all your emotions into making it the next day. You're putting all your thought into coping and not thriving. You know what I mean? The disconnect between the inner urban communities in the hood and the rest of the world is very large. So when you don't go to these different places and you don't see people getting in confrontations and how they handle things and they go about their business, it's is real different. Just me living in a very small town in Oklahoma, these guys didn't hold grudges, and if they didn't like each other, they squashed it because they understood, hey, bro, this is a little ass town. We're all we got. Eventually, we're gonna need each other. Eventually, there's gonna be a flood or a tornado or a famine for something, and we're gonna have to join forces. So it was it was not very common to see people beefing or what have you. It was not very common for people to get into confrontations, and they were just not liking each other for years and years and years. Now, in my opinion, of course, me coming from only living in bigger cities, I just thought everybody was fake as hell. I was just like, nigga, you just gonna make up like that? You just gonna forget what this motherfucker? And they're like, bro, we all we got, in a certain way. But at the end of the day, you know, the lesson learned, certain people were not going to change their behavior because they knew they could do certain things and get away with it because eventually we're going to need each other. So at the end of the day, this young man shouldn't have had to go to prison to learn this lesson. If you're going to look at my lips, brother, you need to leave me a like. Trying to roast on the low, but it's a shame that he had to go to prison and be in the worst place that you can be in society to learn the thing that could have made you the greatest person that you could be. Because of course, R.P. Simple the P, he would always say, you know, the disciplined man is the dangerous man. They're not afraid of your rappers. They're not afraid of your actors. They're not afraid of these R&B singers that's doing whatever to these women, bro. They're afraid of the disciplined man. They assassinate the disciplined man, the Malcolm X's, the Martin Luther Kings. They're not worried about your rapper, bro, because they're already on a self-destructive path. They're already not doing what they're supposed to be doing with their souls 9 times out of 10. You know what I'm saying? So teach yourself that because eventually, bro, you're going to have some discipline, bro. Just like with being humble. If you don't humble yourself, then the universe is going to humble you. And the universe might humble you with death. You might break an arm, you might break a leg, you might lose your job, you might lose your home, but you do have to be humble in some way, in a lot of ways. You don't have to be this egoless spirit with a body. This is just a vessel. I am one with God as person. But you don't have to be a asshole. You don't have to be abrasive. You don't have to be somebody that's hard to be around because you just think so highly of yourself. You know what I mean? If you don't humble yourself, there are forces that are out there that's going to do it for you. A lot of people are no longer here because they were not humble when they were supposed to be. And that was the only way they could have been taught to be humble. But man, much respect to that young man. He turned his life around. He was no longer in the street. He ended up getting his ID and his social security card back because his BM helped him, you know, obtain those pieces of documentation so he could get a job. I never got his information, so I don't know where he is in life. I'm sure that he's out the street. I'm sure he got out the street right after me because he was a hardworking young man. But at the end of the day, bro, I do want to give you guys those couple lessons. So, you know, raise your children so the judge, so the court system won't have to raise your children. You want to be able to have some kind of proof that your child is a good productive citizen and not have to beg the judge not to sentence him to 30 something years because you didn't raise him right in the first place. You know what I mean? And heal yourself, travel, love, do shadow work, heal yourself, bro. If you know you respond to anything in an inappropriate way, oh man, thank you, I appreciate you. Then you need to get help, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with needing help. Everybody needs help, bro. I'm in therapy right now, and my second therapist told me that 72% of Americans definitely need some form of therapy in their lives. And I think it's like 80% of Americans get traumatized before the age of 12 years old. So that means only 8% of people heal naturally without actually getting therapy. People are walking around here with all kind of personality disorders because a lot of people don't get PTSD. A lot of people get personality disorders. A lot of people are formed by their environment and formed by the events in their life, and their form is messed up. So you need to get you some help, and there's nothing wrong with it. A lot of times it's free, and if you really need a therapist, bro, get you a decent job. If you're under the age of 25, you could get put on somebody else's insurance and pay a good amount and get a decent therapist. If you're not comfortable with your therapist, bro, change that person. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. It's not what it's not. That was my message. I have things to do. I hope you guys have a great Monday, a great rest of your week. Make sure you leave a like if somebody needs to hear this message. Definitely send it to them. Make sure you comment below what you want me to speak on next or what you want me to do any reactions to. It's Aaron Moses. I'm the bang, you the bang. We the bang together, man. So Real TV, salute. John, salute. John, salute.